Hello, my lovelies. Let me know if you can hear me. Let's see if we can improve the sound. There they went. How is everyone today? Good, you can hear me? I'm trying my little fuzzy mic. So, within the last 9 minutes, Mars went retrograde at 6:33 tonight. And so, it is an interesting time. I'm gonna just speak from personal experience, and the Mars retrograde, it doesn't behave, it doesn't navigate astrological weather the way a Mercury retrograde would. It's very different, and it can be really, really good. And the reason that we love astrology, the reason that it's so wonderful, for these reasons, for forecasting, looking at transit, looking at what's coming up ahead, and also the research of hundreds and hundreds of years of how that plays out in people's lives. Every day, I'm grateful for everybody that documented over the last couple of centuries anything astrological because of that, along with our own clients, you know. But it really, it helps us to help you. And so for me personally, because I have a very strong Mars, because of the house it's in, every time there's been a Mars retrograde, has there been personal things that are that were uncomfortable, to say the least? Yes. However, I had an upgrade in my career every single time, and it's happening again. So Mars retrograde, when harnessed, when we understand, can be absolutely slap you on the ass fantastic. So that's what I'm hoping to do tonight, and then again tomorrow, looking at this. And, you know, again, helping you to get the most out of it. Saying hi to Adva and Juan and Teresa and Shauna. I don't know if it's cold by you, but it's cold by me. I had to go run. So I don't have a filter. I think that is, there's some realness for you. I look like Sybil Shepherd from Moonlighting, if you know, you know, for a minute, which I'm sure I was like, I made homemade bagels. I was probably eating a bagel and working with my computer and got grease on the camera. Speaking of authentic, we try to be authentic here. So I hope you have your charts out. I hope you have your charts out tonight. We're going to look at what is a Mars retrograde. How does that behave? What can it mean? Why does it feel tender at times, and why can we ride this into our own empowerment? We're going to go over all of that. We're going to go over tonight how it acts in Cancer and Leo, specifically because it starts tonight at 6:33, so literally 13 minutes ago. Mars went retrograde, and it went retrograde at 6 degrees and 10 minutes in Leo. It's going to retrograde all the way back to 17 degrees of Cancer. That's where it's going to stop its retrograde. That's where it's going to station. And if you've noticed, it's been at 5 degrees for almost a week, because when a planet is slowing down and stationing, it's very, very powerful. So if we have people born before 6:33 tonight, especially today and yesterday, they have a stationing planet in their birth chart. Right? It's very, very interesting, the power, that planet has. I have a stationing Jupiter in my natal chart, and it shows up. It's very interesting, and that is something we can do in membership, or if you ever want to grab a session, we can look at if you have any hidden superpowers, any stationing planets. We're going to go over what it acts like in Cancer, what the themes are in Cancer, what the themes are in Leo, how that may manifest. And tonight we're going to talk about if you have a Leo or a Cancer planet placement, what it looks like if it's conjuncting, because that's going to take extra special care. We're gonna talk about if you need to be more aware, if it's going to affect your chart and therefore your life, maybe with a little bit more oomph than someone else's. Are you having a perfection year? Is it your chart ruler? Do you have a very strong place Mars? Do you have a very strongly aspect Mars? Do you have planets in either between 0 and 6 degrees and 10 minutes of Leo, or 29 to 17 degrees of Cancer? Those are all going to impact with a little bit more oomph. We might feel it a little bit more. I know that in 2020, on my birthday, Mars went retrograde on my moon. On my birthday, on my moon, like almost at the degree. And I felt it. And Aries Mars does not act the same way a Cancer Mars or a Leo Mars does. But for me, I was in the hospital that day that was my 50th. So we are going to want to look at our health if we're having strong conjunctions. And I was fine, but I also knew not to ignore the signs. Like, I could have gone home. If I had gone home, I would not be sitting with you today. Right? So we're not going to ignore health stuff. We are going to take advantage of success. We are going to be re-examining our patterns around any suppressed anger, how we handle resentments, if we have a lot of resentments, how we can clear those up. We can heal any kind of ego issues. And ego doesn't mean you're an egomaniacal, narcissistic beehole. It means that you are someone who, identifies as a growing, evolving human, right? And what we're working in and out of. Okay, so Jane your daughter has Mars retrograde. I also have a daughter that has Mars retrograde. Degrees, 6 degrees. Okay, 58 minutes of Cancer. Okay, so this won't be conjuncting. This won't be conjuncting her. I'm going to plug this in just to make sure. This won't be conjuncting, but she'll feel it. And then tomorrow, we're going to talk about it, what it looks like through the houses. And then if you all have any questions. I don't know that we'll be able to do, there is a lot, sorry if this is making obnoxious noise for the people at home. There's a lot to unpack for this, because we are going through 2 different signs. Hi, Will. Hi, April. So first, let's talk about Mars in general. Mars is going to rule our desire, our ambition, our authenticity. It's going to rule physical activity. It's going to rule our impetus, our get up and go, if you will. Hi, Rose. Oh, is it not allowing me to be on and be plugged in? Here we are. And that is our normal expression of Mars. Now, if Mars is not healthy, where it's our own motivation, competition with ourselves, it can manifest with unhealthy competition with others. It can manifest from passion to, obsessive, unhealthy passion, the conflict we feel within ourselves, our ability to meet challenges that can turn into all kinds of wrong, right? When we see an unhealthy Mars, that can manifest as unhealthy anger, even violence. And on a collective level, we're about to see some big booms. I was actually on the phone with Lori Rivers earlier today. If you haven't already checked out her podcast, she is the queen of the mundane collective astrology and predictions. Her accuracy is insane. I literally don't know anyone who can do what she does. But we were speaking on the phone earlier today, and we're just talking about how, are you competitive with everyone else, and that makes for unhealthy relationships, or are you competitive with yourself? Because there is a big difference in the expression. And so when Mars is healthy, we can ride that into incredible success for ourselves, incredible physical health, incredible passion. I have said it for years. When people talk about Venus and love and sex, Venus is maybe how you get them to the stadium, but Mars is the execution. Mars is how you're sliding into home. So it's not only passion and physical activity, but it can be the physical activity of passion. And healthy, that's great for all of us, right? Unhealthy expression of that can be violent, can be unkind. So Mars is and all planets have their healthy and unhealthy expression, right? Their undeveloped expression. And the thing about Mars is the extremes can be very extreme. The success we see in a healthy, well-fed Mars, and you're going to feed your Mars with your Venus. That's probably a whole different show. But you need to feed your Mars to keep it healthy. And when it's not well fed, when it has been riddled with trauma, and there aren't a lot of great healthy processes, Mars can get very ugly. Sure, Venus can be obsession, and the moon can be, right? We look at unaspected and weirdly aspected moons and difficult moon placements when we're looking at people who commit crimes, right? And crime of passion can come in all different ways. And again, we're going to see some big booms. The other thing Lori was talking about is she's a fantastic researcher, and she was saying that the last time, because we're going to have the moon and Pluto conjunct in Aquarius opposing this Mars retrograde, and the last time that exact transit existed was in 1939. Right? So are we going to see some big booms? Are we going to see some really interesting things in the collective? Sure. For those details and for the accuracy, because she's not just like this can express, she will give you, go watch the Awake Space podcast, because she will. She'll let you know. But she was already, we were talking about it today, and she's like, that's Kapowie energy, right? But on a personal level, This could be a great transit for you. It can be an absolute great transit. Your 29 degree, 59 minute, 6th house Cancer cusp. So it'll hit, yeah, it's going to hit, if you have 29 degrees of Cancer, it's going to hit because it's starting at that 6 degrees of Leo, and it's going to move backwards to that 17 degree of Cancer. So absolutely. And we're going to talk about what it looks like through all the houses tomorrow, because that's very interesting. So I'm going to try to keep this succinct. So first we're going to talk about first we're going to talk about how Mars in retrograde in general kind of expresses the things that we can expect. And if you'll see me looking off to the side, I have 5 gazillion pages of notes just to keep me on track. You know, if Mars is action and motivation and our impetus and our passion and our drive, right? And our physical activity, then in retrograde, it's kind of asking us to be less impulsive, to rest, if you will. And some of us won't have a choice depending on how it's aspecting your chart. And some of us have felt, when Mars was in Cancer, you probably have felt a little better in the last couple of weeks when Mars was in Leo, when it has some pickup, when it's represented by the sun, which is our vital energy. When, you know, that may have given you a little bit more get up and go. However, you know, Mars in Cancer can be a little sluggish even when it's direct. So when we're going to have, even in Leo, even though it's fiery, when we have this Mars retrograde, it's asking us to take a step back, depending on your Mars. Now, if your Mars is Vaseline and sneakers all the time, if your Mars is impulsive all the time, if your Mars is like, you know, you're looking at everything like whether you want to eat it or hug it or and you act on it normally, then this might be a little bit more challenging for you when we're saying slow it down, take a step back, because all retrogrades are time to reanalyze, restructure. Especially Mars is re-strategizing, right? Reassessing. But it's also rest. You know, Mercury goes retrograde every 5 minutes, it feels like, and life goes on, right? We have to sign contracts, we have to do things, we have to go to work, we have to go on the computer, we have to go on the internet, we just have to deal with it. But if Mars is our physical activity and our motivation and our trajectory, then when it is in retrograde, it really is asking us to rest and take that time, you know? Stephen Forrest talks about Mars retrograde as like an opportunity, a transit to form a deeper dive and a deeper understanding of how you relate to passion. You know, it all goes back, right? You know, it's not just right now, I'm not getting the results I want in my career. Right now, I feel disimpassioned about my relationship. When we have retrogrades like this, and Mars goes retrograde the least frequently, happening every 2 years. And it tends to be actually retrograde 2.5, but can stay in the same sign for months upon months. When we are marinating in this energy, and when we are giving this astrological an opportunity, energetic opportunity to rest and reassess and re-strategize and examine like Stephen Forrest says, a deeper understanding of your passion, but not only the passion, but the resentments, right? So we're given this time because it's not just about how we re-strategize for right now. The best way to use this kind of a retrograde, especially in Mars, is to examine the core reasons around how we navigate anger, how we navigate failure. Because what is on the other side of the Mars success is failure, right? And I don't think failure is a dirty word. I think fear, and if you are following me on my socials, you're probably so sick of hearing me say this, but fear will keep you from happiness, inner peace, and success far more than failure ever is. Failure is just another word for learning. And sometimes failure is because we're being held back from something that was not going to be good for us. This retrograde, if you will, is a really great time to re-examine. There are pragmatic things we're going to do, right? There's pragmatic advice I'm going to give you. There's pragmatic, tangible ways for it to show up. But if we can take this rest time to walk it back and look at the core reasons, our relationship with anger, our relationship with strategy, our relationship with competition, our relationship with passion, our relationship with authenticity, our relationship with power, our relationship with resentments. All of this is a fantastic subject matter to really explore right now and to heal. Especially because we're talking about Leo and Cancer, and I will get more into detail in that. I'm just going to read a comment. Pretty sure I'm always impulsive, especially your Aries sun, right? And I'm an Aries moon, right? So I have over the years had to learn with that Martian energy around my moon, and then my Cancer and Mars is in mutual reception with the Aries moon, talking to each other all the time, and my Mars is out of bounds. So I get that, right? So I've really had to work. And again, every time there's been a Mars retrograde, something has kind of stopped me dead in my tracks. Hospitalization. My mom got ill. I had to move 1,000 miles during one. I left a collaboration during another and started, working completely by myself, but also upgraded a million other things around my business, which already existed, but it was an upgrade. There were difficult things around all of them, but when you squeeze the juice out, right, all those Mars retrograde made me stop, not be in business as usual, and reevaluate how I did everything and re-strategize. And I'm here again. I'm literally here again. So yes, if you have Aries, we're going to talk about that. If you have Aries placements or if you have strong Mars placements, this might have a little bit more oomph. It's just a good time to sort through unresolved anger and our processes around anger, disappointment, right? If success is part of the benefits of Mars, then we have to look at how we deal with disappointment and resentment around disappointment, right? It's all connected, right? Astrology, they're all talking to each other. They're all talking to each other. In your chart, they're all talking to each other, even if they're not heavily aspecting Everything has a purpose. In the same way where we look at Venus kind of for attachment, and moon can show forms of attachment depending on your moon sign. You know, Mars is how you kind of actively express the disappointment that comes if you have unhealthy attachments. If you have unhealthy attachments, right, you're going to have probably more experience with resentment. And so how are you handling that actively? Where are you now, and how can we restructure, refine it even? You know, for a lot of you, you're in 40s or above. So it might be about refining, and it might be just about exploring. It might be really looking at the core reason and letting it go. When we're talking about Mars, especially Mars in Cancer and Mars in Leo, we're talking about defensive energies, right? And I bet you anytime, at some point in your life, that defensive, on ready, Vaseline and sneakers energy was survival. Whether it was survival in career, whether it was survival in life. And now are we at a place where we can look around and say, oh, I've kind of done a lot of reassessing and restructuring and examining. So maybe we're just down to refining now, right? Now we can pay attention to the little things, to the nuances. And that is what this energy is so beautiful for. The last retrograde was in 2022 into 2023, and it was in Gemini, the last Mars retrograde. Prior to that, it was in Aries in 2020. So it's about every 2 years. So our next one will be in 2026 into 2027. Venus was retrograde in 2022. It started in July and went into August. And when Mars moved into Gemini in August that year, then it stayed in Gemini and went retrograde in the fall winter and stayed retrograde into, that was a very long Mars and Gemini transit. It was almost 8 months. It was almost 8 months in Gemini. So this is a little different because it starts in Leo and then goes to Cancer, and it'll come back direct in Cancer and then finally move back into its original retrograde spot, right? The last two Mars retrogrades that we had in 2020 and 22 were in one sign and stayed in one sign. In 2020, it was Aries on my moon. So I felt that. Just as Chiron also went into Aries, which is conjunct my moon. So like there was a lot going on for me in 2020. There was a lot going on for everybody in 2020, but that is when my health crisis happened. And my mom got really ill and I had to move to go be her caretaker. But then the next one was Mars in Gemini. And that was 2022 going into 2023. I know it seemed like just yesterday we were talking about the long Mars in Gemini. Not only how you deal with unresolved anger, but looking back at how that has affected your relationship with yourself, and the health of your relationships. And not only that, but the health of your body, because unresolved anger, unresolved resentments will absolutely manifest as health issues, inflammation in particular. And we know that inflammation is the core source of all illness, all chronic and acute illness, right? So in a Mars retrograde, we're all going to be taking care. We're all going to be looking. The last Mars retrograde in Gemini, that happened in my 9th house mostly, but I still ended up in the hospital. So we're always going to, Mars can in the body manifest as inflammation. So we're always going to be extra careful. We're always going to be looking at our health, and we know that Leo rules the heart and Cancer rules the chest, the breast, right? So we're going to be, we know, right? Know before you go into the transit. So we're going to be extra careful, about inflammatory issues. And part of that is stress. How we deal with the stress, how we deal with the disappointment, how we deal with the resentment, how we deal with the anger, right? Because it's not just about the health of relationships, it's the actual health of our body. Taking the rest time to go to the source. But again, just processing it. Turning pages. I promise you can use this transit as a profound, significant transit to help you empower, to help you create. Creative expression and personal power are going to be big themes. And then broken down over the 2 signs, and then we're going to break them down even further in the houses. We're going to break them down even further, looking at, do you have any planets that this is going to be conjunct? I'm off, or am I really delayed? I know it was off for a second before Teresa. I think that it's telling me it's all on. I think you might be behind just a bit. It's okay. Mars can feel like the absence of patience, but it's what we need to practice. During a Mars retrograde, learning how to practice how and our relationship with patience is always, right, on the menu, so to speak. If you can have the patience to reassess, and you have to reassess, you have to re-strategize, you have to re-examine your relationships, all the themes that we've mentioned, with accountability and awareness. There is more empowerment in your own accountability and your own self-awareness than you will ever find, and this is very important for the portion while it's in Leo, than in the validation of another or somebody else handing you a position of power. Right? How do you put effort into goals? What goals do you even allow yourself? Right? Oh, that's just a dream. How do you follow through? Mars retrograde's key themes are going to also, right, we have all this goodness we can squeeze out of it. It's also going to give us frustration and delay. It's also going to sometimes create inner conflict. It also can create like low energy. And that's, I believe, purposeful, so that you can take the time to not be as impulsive. You might not have the energy to be as impulsive. Right? Like, I would like to get up, go over to your house and mess you up because you are attacking my credibility or you are attacking my family. But I gotta tell you right now, the idea of even putting on the sneakers and the Vaseline is exhausting. Divine intervention, astrological intervention. Your creative expression and your absolute sense of authority. Like, what is your relationship with authority? Do you allow that? I talk about that all the time, whether it's in community that I'm doing like tarot on the weekend, or whether we're doing something astrological, or whether it's in a private session with a client, our relationship to power is so important. If you have a strong Mars, if you have strong Aries, if you have strong Cardinal, right? Or if you have a fire sign Aries, you may have experienced or have a close relationship with rejection and not being defended, not being protected, right? Or somebody overpowering you or abusing the power that they had over you, right? So then that informs our relationship with power, because some of us will just always equate power with the bad people, with the abusive people, with the people who didn't protect us when they should have, or straight up violence, depending on how that Mars was aspected. The people who had power maybe were verbally abusive, physically abusive, right? Psychologically abusive. And so when Mars is in retrograde, but especially in Leo and especially in Cancer, we're definitely re-examining our relationship with power and letting go anything that keeps us from our own authority. An authentic authority. You know, this is the beauty of astrology, is this understanding all of this before we go into it. Because like this morning, my lovely daughter had a mini heart attack because the you know, we have different accounts. I have my accounts, she has her account, but we share them for like certain apps. And she went to go use them on a certain app, and it said it couldn't process right now. And she had just like it glitched. She had plenty of money, but it just, and I just said, if you remember that it's Mercury in retrograde right now, it'll help you have a little bit less of a nervous system dysregulation. Like, just expect that everything, that you're going to have to do everything twice or refresh it or whatever the case may be, right? And going into this, going into any transit, getting your transits ahead of time, sitting down with an astrologer. If it's not me, whoever you trust, whoever you love, but sitting down with an astrologer that can help you look at the next 3 months or the next 6 months to see if anything pops out so you can be prepared. It's very, very helpful. Solar returns, lunar returns, all of that. All right. Old habits, old cycles around anger. And when we get into the Cancer Mars, we are absolutely going to talk about family cycles, right? All of that. Strategic planning. And are you strategic in, are you only strategic in your Mercury placement and you're not strategic to follow through? Like, how do we do strategy? Okay. Does anybody have any questions before I move into talking about Mars specifically in Leo? I know there's a little bit of a delay here. It helps if you could take your finger, if you're on your phone or on your computer, if you take the mouse and you just make sure that little ball on the red line is all the way over to your right. I'm just checking out the questions. Venus was in retrograde in Leo, not Mercury, not Mars. Hi, Maricela. Okay. Mars and Leo. I wish I had something that had the time. Okay, 40 minutes. Mars and Leo. We're going to be examining authentic power. for sure we're going to be examining, you know, do you need validation to feel the power? Moving away so you can have your own authentic authority. Moving away from needing others to validate. And listen, I have a Leo Venus and I understand this. And I do need, I mean, for Pete's sake, I make bagels, bread, cookies all the time, right? But I have a very picky, my youngest, because he was on a feeding tube for a year. So he didn't get to like expand his taste buds when normal babies do, right? He was on a feeding tube. And so whenever we can add anything to the list of things that he eats, it feels like a giant triumph. But I am at the point where if I make a bagel and it's extra good, and, you know, I'm always checking in, like, do you like them? I love coming into the kitchen and seeing they're all gone. It means he ate them all. Because him being proud of me or him being happy, freaking matters to me, right? So like, I'm not saying that like the people that you love the most, you don't want feedback and validation, because part of that is taking the temperature of each individual relationship, right? But when you feel like, unless you have validation from external sources, that you have no power, you don't feel as empowered. There is something less than about the empowerment you feel, the authority you feel, the authenticity you feel. That is something. Now, some people aren't like that. Some people, you know, again, one of the things I say ad nauseum is that other people's opinions of us are none of our business. That, as a Venus Leo, took me and a Virgo rising, took me a very, very long time. The first time I heard it, I was like, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. I was probably in my 30s. I just thought that was the most ridiculous thing to say, and it wasn't true, and pay it no mind. And then I heard it again. And then I let it sit with me. And then I started to say it, and then I wanted it. I wanted to feel that way. And I had to want it and work through to the point where I actually started to practice it, which was hard. Don't ask me how I did it. I just did it. It was hard. And now it's a full-on practice that is with ease, or else I wouldn't have survived. Another conversation Lori and I were having. Would not have survived last Christmas. Hi, Brady. Right? Because there's slander all over the internet. Thank God that I've gotten to that point. But when we're not, it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you too influenceable. It doesn't make you not a strong person. But in Leo, we want to make sure that external validation isn't the only source of empowerment and authority and authenticity. You know, taking center stage is also Mars and Leo. Taking center stage. Now, for some people, that's really uncomfortable. And for others, they feel like they're overdue. And some people have a balance of it, right? But how are you with taking center stage? How are you with putting yourself out there in what you're knowledgeable about? No one's saying go out, flail your arms, make videos all over God's green internet just to speak, just to hear your own voice. But can you take center stage and not have a dysregulated nervous system? Or do you have anger and resentment around the fact that you feel like you're overdue to take center stage, and that you're watching everybody else take center stage and saying, when is my turn? These are all things you want to revisit and really look at. And look at the core reasons, because if you're not looking at the core reasons, this is just something you're going to revisit again. Am I reading that right? You have a stellium, Brady. You are Leo, Sun, Moon, right? Is that 12th or 1st? Or is it a mix? Sun, Moon, Rising, Mercury, and Venus. That's a stellium and then some. We're going to revisit our creative passions, especially ones that feel strategic, like find another way. In other words, if you have a creative passion and you felt blocked, or you felt like this isn't working out for me, or again, you're looking to the side and saying, wow, that person made the stupid shadow book. And it at one point was selling 1 million a week, right? And like frustration, because you're thinking, I want to have that creative expression. I have things I want to share. However, you know, I feel blocked, or I feel like it's not coming with the same ease, or like I'm a little salty, like that looks kind of bullshit, and they're making all that money, and I have something that's actually useful, right? Find another way. This is when we stop trying to bang our heads against the brick wall, and we find another way. We re-strategize our creative expression. I don't believe in sign shaming. I believe in realness. I will hold your hand and say it with love, but I don't believe in sign shaming. I hate people. I don't hate people, but I hate the roasting of signs for the views. Healing ego issues in Leo. Healing ego issues. And again, ego doesn't mean that you're an egotistical, self-centered, vain, I hate all that Leo slander. Somewhere in your childhood, there may be somebody who had a modicum of narcissism, or we needed a lot of validation because it just wasn't given. You know, you may have had either older siblings that took up a lot of space in the family, or parents who just weren't very generous with compliments, not because you weren't absolutely adorable and worthy of love and worth giving time and attention to, but probably because they had their own deconstruction of their own childhood trauma and blah 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 that they did not deal with, because that's not what you did back then. You weren't examining your core reasons for any kind of behaviors. It was just all about the correction at whatever cost, right? So healing ego issues is part of it's connected to the validation around Leo. And again, that doesn't make somebody vain or self-centered or egotistical. It means the feedback feels like a warm hug. There's a yawning chasm there that was created in childhood, and there aren't enough warm hugs until you balance that for yourself. Heart health. Nourishing yourself physically and emotionally during this Mars retrograde. Please, please, please make sure you're doing that. And Mars retrograde in Leo is quite literally a powerful and kind of intuitive. It's an opportunity to redefine and create how we are seen. That's authority, that's success, that is letting yourself be seen without the need for the validation, which is the sweet spot. And that's not easy for anyone. but that's part of what we're looking at doing. You feel like you want to fight everybody since this morning. Well, that could be other stuff, my love, because it only went, we're at less than an hour since it went retrograde. So this morning isn't, it's not that. Okay. Although I will say, when a planet stations, and I can't remember when I spoke about this, I speak too much, and astrologically, you know, I'm live now every Friday and Saturday, and then every other Sunday, and then I'm having astrological conversations with clients, of course, and then also with colleagues and friends. So I don't remember when I said this, but if you think about when we're all kids and we're in that pool and everybody walks in one direction to get that whirlpool going, right? And that's a centrifugal force. And that's like what a planet is doing all the time. And then if you ever, for just, you know, fun, everybody dead stop and then turned around and tries to go the other way against the centrifugal force, to slow, when that water is like kind of fighting us and slowing down to start going the other way, that's representative of the energy of a planet that's stationing, ready to go retrograde or ready to go direct after a retrograde. So the stationing is very powerful. That's another talk for another time. We can look for stationing planets. You kind of need an ephemeris for that, or you need software for that that'll tell you if your planet is stationing. And then there's, you know, some software will consider things stationing for only a couple of hours, but if it's a longer retrograde, like an outer planet or a social planet, I give a little bit more grace for this stationing time. We all saw how long was Mars at 5 degrees and 6 degrees. It took a week just to move through that 1 degree, which is not normal for Mars. So it really started that slowing down earlier than we would consider the stationing, but the slowing down is also very powerful energy. Okay. Let's look at what that looks like before we get into Mars and Cancer, and then I will take any questions about Mars in retrograde in general, or just you know, Mars and Leo in retrograde. There we go, and let's make sure. There we go. Okay, one of the words off. Can everybody see that? So here we are. Let me pop out the chat. There we go. Okay, so here we are at 6:33 this evening with Mars going retrograde in Leo at that 6 degrees and 10 minutes. So does anyone in the chat have any planets in Leo? Brady, our new friend, since you've got 5 gazillion placements in Leo, are any of them around? And we're not looking at 6 degrees and 30 minutes, although you feel that a little bit. So 6 degrees or less in Leo. I'm wondering if any of your planets are in Leo or around that degree. So we have it here, and then it's going to go. It's going to stay. I'll go day by day just to kind of show you guys. So it's going to take quite some time. We have 2 days of it just at 6 degrees and 9 minutes. Let me make that just a tiny bit bigger for you all. You don't need all the extra. No. It should be that. Hold on. There we go. So we are following this bouncing ball here. That's 6 degrees and 9 minutes. I hope that's showing up crisper on your screens than it is on mine. Venus, Mars, anybody who's got degrees, 6 degrees and 10 minutes, or 6 degrees to 0 degrees of Mars, please put it in the comments. So we're going day by day, and we can see it takes a little while, right? It spends 2 days. A minute means a minute in astrology. So it takes 2 days for a placement, a planet, to transit just 2 minutes. That's how, I mean, that is how slow it's going in retrograde and when it's stationing. So now we see it picking up. We see it picking up speed. So December 11th. Make it crispy. I'm trying, babe. I'm trying, Juan. December 11th it takes until we're still out of that 6 degrees. So we're moving along here. And this is when it gets interesting. We're going to have Pluto Moon conjunction when that moon is on New Year's Day. Hi, honey, there's pizza for you. So here we have Moon conjunct Pluto in Aquarius, opposing Mars. And again, I was speaking to Lori, who is amazing at research, and she told me that she looked, and the last time that Moon conjunct Pluto, right? We've had Mars opposite Pluto, but at 0 degrees, at 1 degree, no. Because there's a lot of power and there's a lot of undeveloped, just raw energy at those lower degrees. So this is going to be powerful, and we're definitely going to feel this on a collective. Doesn't mean you're going to have a bad day. Doesn't mean you're going to fight with everybody. But, you know, I love a moon in Aquarius. I hate moon in Aquarius slander. In fact, I was so excited. I was sad to leave my progressed moon phase of moon in Aquarius. And I was very excited when my solar return gave me a moon in Aquarius this year, because it is a great time to work on detachment. Any attachments that we have are unhealthy, that Aquarius moon will bring it out, right? So this is transforming unhealthy attachments to things we don't need and leaving room for the kind of rebellion and transformation that both Aquarius and Pluto kind of lean into, right? And then there's Mars. And I'm just going to say on a collective level, examining the Leo energy will have people who want to take center stage, they'll have the attention. And if they come off inauthentic or violent or you know, not for the greatest good, that is going, we're really January 1st should be interesting. So again, we have Mars in Leo. Until January 6th. And January 6th, it ingresses in retrograde into that Cancer Mars. And there it's going to stay until the 23rd. Of February. And here we have her. So it's a long, long time in Cancer. It spends far more time in Cancer. And I believe it's actually evening on the 23rd, where we go 17 degrees and 1 minute. I don't believe it ever gets to that 0 minute. It is evening again. Well, evening on the East Coast. There we go. So somewhere around 8 p.m., between 8 and 9 on the 23rd Eastern, it will go direct again. And we are for sure going to feel that. And on that day, also, we have a Moon-Mars opposition. Moon in Capricorn. It's squaring Venus. So we have a lot of interesting collective stuff. Anybody else have any other questions before I move into what it acts like in Cancer? Okay. Cancer Mars is interesting, right? Because a lot of people think that it is weak there. And I, as somebody who has a Cancer Mars, now listen, mine's in mutual reception with my Aries moon. It's in the 10th house. You know, there's several reasons why I have never, ever experienced for me that it made me feel weak. The thing about a Cancer Mars too is that if a Cancer Mars is unhealthy, then we're really talking crime of passion. If a Cancer Mars is unhealthy, it can be, it can express like an abusive authority figure, right? We can go over what, I mean, it really doesn't do us any good. When we go over, if you are in membership, we're doing the learning series. We're doing the houses first. We do 2 at a time. So we'll have the 3rd and 4th houses up in a couple weeks, 2 weeks. Yep, 2 weeks. And then, or is it next week? I think that's actually next week. Then after those are done, we'll do the planets, and we'll talk about the planets when they're in retrograde in the natal chart. That actually unless it's sitting on that retrograde planet in this transit, doesn't really do us any good. But I would say, like, balancing assertiveness and sensitivity, balancing the intuition with the action. And if it's Cancer Mars as a vibe, the way that we rest and take patience and reassess is, are we somebody who takes action, or do we wait until it's a reaction? Right? Do we hold back? Are we so concerned with nurturing and being nice and making sure everything's good with everybody else that we don't take action until it's a reaction, and then it's a big reaction, right? Because Cancer and Mars can be a bit like a stew pot, like a pressure cooker. Don't put a finger on Aries Mars person or Cancer Mars person. The nicest person that hates conflict, if you lay a finger on somebody that they love or they feel protective over, woo, talk about crime of passion. Vaseline and sneakers all day. It's misunderstood, right? The Cancer and Mars can make you have almost an urgent sense of protection, defense around those with who you love. I mean, it's safety. That's how the Cancer Mars expresses. It feels like it's basic safety. And that always feels urgent, right? If you love somebody, if you care about them, their emotional safety, their physical safety, all of that is kind of ever present. Because of this, Mars and Cancer can feel tense, even though we think about it as like nurturing, and it is. It can feel very tense because there's almost like that ever present urgent need for safety, whether that's and security, whether that is financial security, because that is security, because if you're a Cancer Mars, any kind of insecurities that your family, any kind of time that you feel like you're not protecting them from financial insecurity, food insecurity, house insecurity, and physical security, it's beyond personal, right? It seems much more so Aries and Cancer both share that. Much easier, right, to advocate for somebody else. You can threaten me and I might laugh. Threaten somebody I love. There's not, and I'm not saying this to brag or to sound tough. It is my lived experience, and it is the lived experience of people who have threatened or, God forbid, put a finger. And that doesn't matter if it's my best friend, if you're my girl and you're my girl and we're someplace, if you're my man and some like it, let alone children or parents. Right? That's, I mean, it will go 0 to 60. So I want you to remember that in this energy in the Mars retrograde, it's asking you to look, because having inaction until it's a reaction and then it's explosive, wanting not to fight. I could sit here and tell stories for days where I didn't want people to fight and want there to be an argument. One time it was at like a big number birthday party for me. Obviously not my 50th because I was in the hospital. But I mean, and I did not want to like, these people should leave, but like that's going to cause a scene. Until somebody put a finger on my friend and I saw her head hit the side of a pool deck. I will not recount what happened next, but let's say it was mom lifting car off baby kind of energy, Mars expression. So to say that, and say that collectively, yeah, you're going to see around January 6th, you're going to see anything that feels protective, anything that feels like it needs protecting. There will probably all of a sudden feel like an urgency, and there will probably all of a sudden feel like all rules, all bets are off, all the normal behavior, all the normal constraints with which I would let Mars express, or which we would collectively let Mars express, all bets are off. Because now it's an urgent need to keep something secure and safe. That's all I'm going to say about that collectively. Okay, yes. You're saying yes in Cancer Mars. You're at home going, oh my God, yes, right? Now that feels really, really amazing for the people that are loved by somebody with a Cancer Mars, right? So Mars in retrograde is also, who are you protecting? Who's gotten so used to your protection? Who's gotten so used to your nurturing that they're not taking action for themselves? How are you a part of that dichotomy? How are you, and how is that draining you? Because Mars in Cancer is either go, go, go in its cardinal, or it's under the crab shell. It's very much in rest. It needs, right? It needs refuge. It needs sanctuary. It's Cancer. So where are you over protecting? And where are you protecting where somebody's like, I'm good. Stop. I can't, where does it turn into enabling? So that can feel like it needs to be safety. And the way that I talked about success and Mars and the opposite of that being disappointment, resentment, anger, the opposite of safety is, when does that turn into the pressure cooker? Oh, enjoy your family. I'll probably be done in the next half an hour, but I'll be back tomorrow for part 2 through the houses. Maybe 45 minutes. Thank you, Brady. I'm actually well into 54, right? I have, in another couple of weeks, I'll be closer to 55. But thank you. The smothering issues. What are you smothering, right? What are you not, yeah. Where are you not trusting your own intuition and taking action? You can't just have the intuition, you have to have the follow through. And cardinal signs sometimes are not as good with the follow through. It just is what it is. It just is what it is. So we want to look and see where we've felt the want, the desire to have that crime of passion, right? Now, whether that is actual, you saw red because somebody, you have a pattern of seeing red when somebody lays a finger on somebody, which, when it's self-defense, that's one thing. But where is it manifesting in an unhealthy way, where it's smothering and there's such a long time of inaction, and then an explosion? Again, the balance of assertiveness and sensitivity, and crime of passion again can be like an actual violent crime of passion. It could also be getting in your car and driving around somebody's house because you're so all kinds of heated and you're convinced something is going on, rather than asking the question or waiting until you're exploding. Crime of passion can be lots of things. It could be internet stalking. Um, you know, Cancer Mars is warrior energy, kind of the way that Aries Mars is warrior energy. And where are you wasting that warrior energy? Where can you put it to good use in your career, in your creative expression, in your authenticity, in your own power, in action that you have every day, constant action and not just reaction, right? Where are you just putting that warrior energy into other things, so you're using it as a distraction? I'll never forget that when somebody said, I think it's beautiful that you advocate for other people. I would hate to ever see that get to the point where it's a distraction for what you have to work on yourself. Ouch. But that's Cancer Mars energy. She wasn't wrong. That was my Vita. A decade ago. The themes of the Cancer Mars retrograde is going to be home and family. Both like emotional and physical safety might come up. Protection. How do we act or enact, right? And we also may be looking at past ancestry, whether that's you just happen to do a deep dive. You know, I don't know how I feel about the 23andMe's anymore, because I'm pretty sure that information just becomes public, but I'm not sure what isn't already public. Hi, Tina. But we could be looking at epigenetics, which just means we could be looking at trauma cycles. We could be looking at family cycles we have to break. Some of us with a lot of warrior energy know that we came into this world to be the black sheep, to be the cycle breaker, right? It's not a fun job to be given. However, so worth the result, right? So we could be looking, this may be, depending on your age and your chart, this may be this Cancer, when Cancer goes into, when Mars goes into retrograde in Cancer, that could be your time to shine as the warrior, cycle breaker, black sheep, fuck it all up, right? To break those cycles. And like the emotional conflict and the assertiveness. Are you not assertive until it is an emotional eruption? These are things for sure. And family dynamics. Conflict can come up in family dynamics. Also, self-care. Self-care should be irregular, but Cancers will tend to self-care once they hit rock bottom, once they drain, right? So for everybody, whether you're Cancer or not, we're going to be looking at how we dole out our self-care. Are we using it as a 911 emergency patch-up kit, or are we nurturing ourselves as much? You got to put your oxygen mask on first. Does anybody have any questions about how retrograde, Mars retrograde in Cancer, what the themes are, how it may express on a personal level? And then we're going to run through what this looks like if you have planets from 6 degrees in Leo to 17 degrees in, so 17 degrees, let me not do it backwards, right? Let me do it, I mean, that's not backwards. That's the way the retrograde is going, which is inherently backwards. Let me put it in layman's terms. If you have any planets in Cancer, let's say 16 degrees to 29 degrees, and any planets or placements in, we're not, definitely the angles in the chart, but any placements in your chart from 0 to 6 degrees of Leo. We're going to go through what that means if this is transiting one of those placements. So sad I drank all my tea. Okay. Hi, Kina. All right, so anybody, let me know in the comments if you have any placements at all. I know, Brady, you have a ton of Leo. My daughter has a Leo moon, but it's not till 16 degrees. So it's not this. Once it retrogrades and goes direct, sure, it'll transit her moon. And I have a Leo Venus. Okay, so you have your Teresa, could you let me know, is the 3 degrees in Leo? I know you have an early Cancer sun like I do. If you could let me know which degrees of those are Cancer, and because if you had something in Leo, but I think that's your Cancer sun at 3 degrees. If you have any placements from 16 degrees to 29 degrees of Cancer, or 0 degrees to 6 degrees of Leo. And the reason why I'm saying 16 instead of 17 is because it's minutes away from being 16 degrees and 59 minutes when it goes direct again, when it stops being retrograde in Cancer. Thank you, Juan. Doesn't matter what the placement is. (16 degrees to 29 degrees of any placements in Cancer. That's okay. You're still going to feel it. Tomorrow we're going to go over the houses because it's happening in everybody's houses. I was born May 16th, which is a day away from... Hi, Zena. So it's actually the 21st. That's the Gemini cusp. The 20th is still Taurus, and the 21st is Gemini in May. But most people that have late Taurus placements have Gemini placements. Just the way that I'm Cancer, but I have Gemini placements and I have Leo placements. Because Venus and Mars often don't stray more than 30 degrees unless they've been in retrograde. There's no such thing as a cusp. Like, there's a cusp of your house where your house ends and begins, but there's no such thing as a cusp sign. I know that there are people out there that believe that that's a special... It's not, once you get further into astrology, it's just a very simple answer of that. If you're born near a cusp, but even if you're not, I'm 4 degrees of Cancer, so I'm 4 degrees away from the cusp. You are 4 degrees, almost 5 degrees away from a cusp. That's not going to stop you from having Gemini planets, though. Also, if you have a lot of planets in the 3rd house, you're going to have Gemini energy. It's been fun. We're going over the house placements and the layering of the houses. Okay, so you have Mars. Teresa, can you tell me which one of those, though, are Cancer or Leo? Because if it's Mars, Venus, and Uranus and Leo, those are not within the retrograde. But if those are Cancer, then they are within the retrograde. I just need to know at the degrees which planet, which sign we're talking about. Okay, so you have a 20-degree Venus in Cancer, DeRay. I know you have a lot of Leo energy, but I think you have later. That's all Leo. Okay, so Teresa, um, none of that is going to absorb the energy of the retrograde so much. It's not going to transit. You'll still get the retrograde energy, but it'll play out more in that house than it will on the planets. Now, DeRay has 20 degrees Cancer. Yeah. So it's going to transit your Venus. We'll talk about that. I hope that answered your question, Zena. Welcome. Okay. Just reading all the comments. Okay. So we're going to talk about Leo sun. If your sun is between 0 and 6 degrees of Leo, and Mars will be transiting it, the Leo sun thrives on visibility, like the creative self-expression, even leadership. Mars retrograde in that same sign and transiting your sun can challenge how you feel confident about that outward projection of your leadership qualities, and the it's not the needing to be seen because there's an egotistical thing. It's a needing to be seen so that it creates an opportunity for the feedback, which is so valued, right? To that warm, lovely Leo. I love a Leo. You could feel a temporary, if this is transiting your sun in Leo, 0 to 6 degrees, you could feel a temporary lack of energy, and maybe face a little frustration hitting your goals. If you're feeling that, find another way. Just find another way. Don't keep banging your head against the same door. If you keep knocking on a door and it's not opening, find a different door, find another way. And also recalibrating, your sense of purpose, and how I think when we have Mars, which is our physical expression and it's our drive, and we have the sun, we're really talking about that retrograde. You have to revamp. You should be looking at revamping how you do your vital energy. What's draining you, right? What in those Leo themes are draining you? How can we kind of like rebudget our energy and drive, so we don't wear out our social battery, and we're paying attention to our heart health, because the sun is the ruler of Leo. So we have Mars retrograde in Leo on the sun. Anybody that I'm speaking to that hears this, that is between 0 and 6 degrees, you are absolutely going to take extra. You're going to go get a checkup, go see, just a normal checkup. I'm not saying you're definitely going to have problems, but you're going to want to be really, really beautiful and caring to your heart health, emotionally too. Also, we could experience like reignited passions with a past person during a Mars retrograde in Leo. Affairs of the heart, not just affairs of the flesh, affairs of the heart. And again, just kind of learning how to redirect yourself to the internal validation during this time so that you're not draining your vital energy. If this is conjuncting your moon in Leo, if you have your moon from 0 to 6 degrees in Leo, she's a 6 degree. Yeah. I mean, you just wanted to, you know, eat your oatmeal and take care of your heart health. I mean, that's also good for your cholesterol, but like, you know, you're going to be doing heart healthy practices. If that's taking your hot girl walk or whatever it is. Okay. If you have Leo moon, I'm going to move my pop-up chat just disappeared. Sorry, I want to make sure I'm keeping up with you guys. If you have a Leo moon between 0 and 6 degrees and the Mars retrograde is transiting it, yeah, emotional triggers, it can bring up a resurface. When I say it's going to resurface so that you can re-examine, it's not just there to hurt you. It's not just there to make you feel sad or inadequate or any of the things that it may make you feel if there's an emotional trigger here. What it's going to do is give you the space to re-examine how you can bolster the confidence, how you can get rid of the inadequate feelings that may plague you. Suppressed angers can resurface with this transit over the moon. It is a time to really, practice and create redirects around patience, and also making sure that it's not the thing that's hurting you or the thing that's upsetting you or the thing that you're like biting your tongue about or feels really hurtful. We're going to double make sure that was personal, because that is something really that we can deconstruct and work on, is making sure we are not risking our health, our regulation of our nervous system, and our sense of self and our sense of authenticity and anything, our emotional pain. We're not risking any of that when it wasn't even really about us. It was about something else in general. So kind of learning how to deconstruct that and taking a moment to examine that before we react. Frustrations around unmet needs. Now I'm going to tell you, this is going to go for Cancer moon or Leo moon. When a Mars retrograde hits your moon, especially if it's closer to the beginning or the end when we have stationing, health issues could come up for our moms, right? Inflammatory issues and health issues could come up for us, right? When we're having a strong Mars in retrograde transit to one of our planets, but especially if it's the moon. And I'm going to say, if you have that, or I would probably need to look at your whole chart or have a conversation with you. If it's going to hit your moon at any degree, that is, to me, that's worth. I had that heads up that something might happen with my mom when it was hitting my moon. And it absolutely did. Within days of me getting home from the hospital, I was making arrangements to move 1,000 miles because I just had to do what I had to do. It was a little chaotic. But having the heads up that I should expect that was so helpful. It was helpful to make the decision to move. It was helpful to make the decision to move when I was myself being newly diagnosed with something and was not. I remember a friend going like, you cannot move right now. Like, you're not stable. But I didn't have nervous dysregulation over it because I had the heads up. So again, it's not a guarantee that something is going to happen to your mom. And my mom did not pass during the retrograde in Mars and Aries either. But there could be health stuff arising. And if you do have a moon 0 to 6 degrees of Leo or 17 to 29 degrees of Cancer, this is when I would probably recommend like a private session even if you just do a half an hour and we're only looking at that. If you have Mercury in Leo, 0 to 6 degrees, you may not be able to execute the ideas. There might be frustration in being able to execute. It might make you pull back. There might be a divine or astrological intervention with this. Don't fret. When you express and you encounter resistance, and that is a cycle, this is what we would be examining if it's hitting your Mercury, 0 to 6 degrees of Leo specifically. When we're passionate about something, and we will not stop selling it to somebody else even if they don't want it, and your intentions are good, your intentions are amazing, right? But for some reason we just keep finding resistance on the other side of that, and we feel like not listened to, not heard, not seen, not heard, which is falls into the not feeling seen or understood. And so I would definitely think the miscommunications that will probably come up for you are just an opportunity to kind of like re-examine that, and find another way to re-strategize how you are getting heard. If this is like our Dere, transiting your Venus, 0 to 6 degrees of Leo Venus, I'm going to get more specific for you, Dere, because we're going to talk about it when it's hitting the Cancer Venus, when it's in Cancer. So this is just for the Leo. I wanted to get really specific, so my notes are all over the place. This, I was smart enough to like talk into text, so it would be on my computer, which is much nicer than running through the pages. But if you have a Venus in Leo from 0 to 6 degrees, yeah, there could be a reigniting, like an affair of the heart. It could feel fiery again, and it could surprise you. It could be for somebody that you thought that's done. Romantic passions, though, for current situations, like it could almost feel tunnel focused, like you would like to go dating, or you would like to, and this other person just keeps it. It could feel very focused, right? Because one of the things that Mars does is it wants to hit the target again and again and again. So when we have this Leo Venus and Leo Mars in retrograde, joining up in between your natal chart and the transit, it could feel like the only place that you can muster up passion, the only place that you can muster up like romance or even your libido, would be for this past person. It can feel like you're supposed to re-examine. Now, does that mean you're supposed to get together with that person again? Maybe not, but you're supposed to re-examine, so that whatever was left in baggage can be unpacked and be like, okay. So that maybe you just are revisiting that so you can really let it go, so that you can move forward, Mars moving forward, right? And help recalibrate that Venus, which is how you attract in. You're also going to be careful if Mars, either direct or in retrograde, is transiting your Venus. That could be money coming in, and it could be burning a hole in your pocket. Depends on what house it's in. We'll cover that tomorrow. Focus on the self-love. This is also creation. How are you manifesting? Because if you're not manifesting with your whole body and the belief that you can and that you're worthy of it, Venus, that's how you want to bring in money and success. It's all related to your Venus and how you calibrate what you're worthy, how you want to be held in this world. Okay, if you have Mars, 0 to 6 degrees of Leo, and this is transiting your Mars, your natal Mars. Mars, I'm going to have it too, kids. Mars, when one is in retrograde, it's a slowdown in momentum. It's asking you to like revamp. And I'm telling you right now, If this is you, you may have been, I don't want to use the word scheming. You may have been strategizing, right? For the last like 5-6 months about what success. I'm going to make this t-shirt. I'm going to go to Printify. I'm going to go on this platform and I'm going to appeal to this group of people. I'm going to work with this person. I'm going to do all this work until I get a promotion. I'm going to put myself in all over on every, I'm going to move to remote. I'm going to fill out every application, whatever it is, right? And this is, you've seen a million people do it that way. If it's not working, this is the time to step back and re-strategize. I want to do this, this, and this. It may be time to like narrow down. And if any impatience, resentment, anger arises out of delay, lack of impatience rather, that is on purpose. This literally, when you have Mars transiting in retrograde to your natal Mars, in almost any sign, it may be about how, especially in Leo and Cancer, how stubborn you are about how you need to get things done instead of just getting them done. And this retrograde is going to ask you to take a step back so that you can re-strategize, and it wants to help you be successful. It's an amazing opportunity, and sometimes you kind of have to throw out everything that you've been strategizing and listen to universe. And again, taking that step back is going to help create the space so that you can do that. But you have to do that with accountability and awareness. It will probably slow you down, but it is like like Coco Chanel, when they like, when you're done accessorizing, take off 3 things or whatever that is, or like when you're plating food, like subtraction, right? We get all excited. That's kind of this. The retrograde is asking you to like, what can you subtract so you're not continuing to have frustration? In Leo especially, it's got to be letting go about what it looks like, how you said you were going to do it, and how you actually have to do it, and making sure there's no, not improper pride, but wasteful pride that keeps you from like, nope, I'm going to do it the way that I said I did it because now I just said it, right? So now I have to follow through. You ever hear that? Like, I'll say that out loud, because if I say to all of like, Facebook or all of TikTok, or like, this is what I'm going to do for the next 6 months, because that'll hold me accountable. That's a dangerous line to walk if you're not willing to re-strategize when the process is more important than the goal. Also, inflammation. We're going to be very careful about inflammation, and we're going to make sure we're not clumsy with knives or fire. If this is hitting your Saturn, right? If you have Saturn 0 to 6 degrees, I'm trying to even think who that would. There's probably not a lot of people that have Saturn in Leo that are listening, but some people will. Saturn in Leo will govern your self-expression and your responsibility to that self-expression, and also help you shine. Like, Saturn is other great teacher besides Jupiter. Jupiter is a great teacher, and because it helps us expand and we go find things to enrich us, and Saturn's a great teacher because it'll kick your ass until you learn a lesson. So in Leo, that energy, the retrograde energy to your own Leo Saturn could trigger like that internal resistance to external challenges, and how we sit and be seen, and how we are responsible to ourselves instead of the external eyes that are watching. Um, and the more creative you can be, if this is hitting, the more creative you can be, the more out of the box that you can be. Because don't forget that retrograde energy. I hate to open this Pandora's box, but especially for Leo, if you think about the retrograde as having just a little flavor of Aquarius, the more out of the box, use the Leo creativity with the change it. Out of the box, Uranian energy that Aquarius holds. And with Aquarius and Pluto and the moon and Pluto at certain times, especially around January 6th, January 5th, remember those words. Delays and obstacles and long-term things that you have been, professional projects and creative projects. Also, again, we're talking about how do we experience authority? Are we always fighting it? Do we feel resentful? Are we afraid of it because we have a bad experience with authority, with people who had power over us, right? The impact of how authority feels could maybe at times feel a little overwhelming if this is your placement. And again, we're gonna have to, it could feel a little restrictive. Authorities could feel like they're in your way. Again, find a way to go around it. We're gonna think outside the box. Does anybody have any questions? It's Mercury retrograde. I mean, what do I even expect? The pop out's not working again. Give me 1 second, guys, so that I can find the pop out. And I will await your typed in questions. There we go. Okay. All right, and then I'm just going to quick run over. If you have planets in Cancer from 16 degrees to 29 degrees, we're going to just talk there. It's going to be kind of the same themes with a tiny bit of difference. Okay. If you have your sun from 16 degrees to 29 degrees of Cancer, you're probably gonna feel conflicted about asserting yourself, but also, especially around family matters, but also feel like an urgency or a need to make sure something is done. And so taking the time to make sure that you're strategizing an action instead of just reacting is very possibly going to come up. Struggling to balance professional and family, career and family, which if you're a Cancer or a 10th or a 4th house placement, that's probably just all the time. Those are definitely themes that can come up with the Cancer sun, as well as absolutely feeling like your drive is just took a left turn at Albuquerque. Heart health, chest health, breast health, all of those we are going to prioritize. We're also going to prioritize the emotional processing before it's a crisis. right before it leads to resentments. We're also, because that also will drain you, right? And reassessing how much energy you devote to the caregiving versus self-care. And I talked about that before, just in the themes of Cancer in general. But self-care should not be a patch kit, a 911 emergency patch kit, where you're putting your energy, because the Cancer sun, it already needs to go into sanctuary often. So with the Mars in retrograde, you're going to want to budget that well. Cancer moon. If your moon is in Cancer and the retrograde in Mars is hitting, it's between 16 degrees and 29 degrees. Yeah, we could deal with mom or maternal figure that you're very close to that would take the role of mom. We're going to take extra care and just be ready and have them making sure they're taking extra care too. Listen, Cancer moon, you're so highly intuitive. You are psychic as fuck, as I like to say, and also very emotionally responsible. And so the Mars retrograde, the repressed emotions are definitely going to be brought to the surface, like resentments because you bit your tongue. Definitely going to be brought to the surface, like frustration, and how you can that'll lead to long-term health. That'll lead to a health crisis if you live your whole life that way. Cancer moon, don't do that, please. For me, don't do that. So we're going to take this time to reassess how we could possibly approach things, so we don't let the frustration build up, especially if you're a Cancer moon. We're also going to be looking at our own health. And is your health in jeopardy because there's nothing left to give yourself, and your stress level and your cortisol levels are that high? It's crazy. Don't do that. Increased sensitivity to criticism, unresolved emotional wounds, passive aggressive tendencies. And again, that's that like not taking action until it's an explosion. Passive aggressive counts. That is inaction in a lot of ways. We don't want that. We don't have to be full on confrontation. It's finding the balance between full on, this is World War III confrontation, and being passive aggressive until you get to World War III. Especially and that doesn't mean that you're a passive aggressive a-hole. That just means that there's some kind of core reason where confrontation probably dysregulates you. And whatever the core reason was, I'm sure it wasn't your fault. But now we have to put our big girl and our big boy pants on and figure out a way to not live the rest of your life that way, because it's not healthy for your body. It's not healthy for your mind. It's not healthy for your spirit. It's not healthy for your nervous system. And it's definitely not healthy for your relationships. And you probably put a lot into your relationships. And then there's the resentment because you probably give intuitively and feel like other people will do the same, and they don't. And that has to probably be worked out during this. This is an opportunity to work that out. Disagreements with family members, partners, old emotional patterns related to self-sacrifice, allow yourself space to process, please. And again, health, and let's keep an extra eye out on mom's health. If you have Cancer Mercury between 16 degrees and 29 degrees in Cancer, and the Mars retrograde is transiting that, I mean, again, we're looking at it's very repetitive here, where there's going to be frustrations around the way that you're speaking. It could be emotionally charged communication, rather than taking a step back and strategizing, and also making sure that what you went and did for others, that they asked for, and that resentments, and having clear conversation will help you not overgive and then not be appreciated, because that's thematic with Cancer, right? And that's all around attachment and detachment. Although that's very Venusian run, it's also very Cancerian. And the Mars retrograde is going to let you look at the disappointment, the resentment, and the anger that is a result, a physical manifestation, an emotional and mental manifestation of the attachment. Revisiting family disputes can come up too. Like old shit that has to get rehashed for sure. You're going to slow down, double check all of your, especially when you're spending at this time, where honestly the Mercury in Cancer and the Venus in Cancer will happen after Christmas season, after the holiday, Q4 season. But still, just in case you're like purchasing a house, right, we're gonna triple check, because we already have Mercury goes back, it'll station December 16th. So again, we won't have both of those energies. Leo will for a little bit, but we won't have both of those energies, both Mercury and Mars in retrograde, for the Cancer placements. Everybody will experience it, but I'm saying Cancer placements. But still, slow down and double check everything. If you have your Venus 16 to 29 degrees of Cancer, this is gonna emphasize for sure, for sure, again, attachment, emotional intimacy, having your needs met, and creating a safe environment where your needs are met. With any unresolved issues, bring them up. Relationships can really come to the forefront. So DeRay, this is for you. This could be like if your relationships, you're not having your needs met, and you were so intuitively, a Cancer, and especially a Leo with Cancer placements like you are, and where many, the way that I have a Venus and Leo, and I'm a Cancer, a lot of Leos might have Venus depending on the retrogrades, but if you have that Venus and Cancer and you have some Leo placements, I know that you're already meeting that person where they're at almost all the time, and that could be a pattern for you. So we're gonna bring it back. Again, with the Mars Venus can be really great, for money. In retrograde, we're just going to rethink how we're doing money, and we're going to be careful not to overspend. And conflicts about shared responsibilities, and any kind of heartache that you walk around with, like this is all gonna get brought up probably one way or another, and it's not to hurt you, it's for you to unpack so that you can just move on from it and not carrying around. Again, this is very bad for your health. Mars in retrograde is really there to support your best physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health, because it's giving you the space by like pulling you back from the action. If you listen to that, and you will actually pull back from the action, you can literally fix cortisol issues. We heal at a cellular level. Is a huge opportunity. Okay, if you have Cancer Mars 16 to 29 degrees, and this is transiting your Cancer Mars when it is in the Mars retrograde is in Cancer. Challenges in asserting yourself, or whether you feel stuck when taking action. Old patterns, it's going to be the same. We're going to restructure, re-strategize, particularly home and work balance. And your energy could feel stagnant. Your libido could feel a little like less. You may want to spend more time in self-love and every expression of that than you do with other people, especially if they're not meeting your needs. You could be like, I can meet my needs. And other people may notice, and it may give opportunity because the action isn't there. to create the conversations that need to happen so that there is more balance. Inflammation, we're doing mammograms, we're doing all of that. Okay, we are making sure we're good, and we are nourishing our bodies, and especially anxiety. Maybe look up mugwort if you're a Cancer and you have Cancer placements that are going to be hit. Cortisol levels, those kind of things. You're going to just be really beautiful to our health. If you have Cancer, Saturn in Cancer, which is going to be some people in their right in their in their 30s, I want to say. Your desire for obligation, your desire for obligation, your obligations and your personal desires is going to be on deck. Delays and frustrations around the long-term goals, just like the Leo Saturn, if this is hitting during the retrograde. I'm reassessing the caregiving roles. Cancer Saturn. You know, Cancer Saturn expresses kind of like a Capricorn moon in some ways, where you don't know how to do anything but be responsible for other people. That is a recipe for resentment. So like all of these themes, but again, you can create some really long lasting success. You can re-strategize for the future and holy cow, create some amazing long-term success and money. You know, I just want to, like, again, this can be a fantastic, but I love all of you, and I just want to make sure you're taking care of yourself. Exacerbation of chronic conditions right now on deck for every sign. Maternal health concerns, because it's Mars in retrograde in Cancer, for every sign. Especially tied to like mom's digestion, fluid retention, the inflammation, anything tied to the chest. You know, health scares. Just know that it's likely to be temporary, but it's also likely to be not as serious if we're know before you go into the transit, right? And the other thing that's for both signs is just burnout and mismanagement of your time, which is why I am encouraging you to like look at how you are budgeting your energy and what can be revamped. And be prepared to have a nighttime routine, whether that is tart cherry juice or reishi powder, hot chocolate, or whatever it is. You like melatonin. I'm not a fan of the Advil PM because the chemical that makes it sleepy also is now being tied to dementia. So go research and find what works for you now before it's a crisis, especially in the sign of Cancer. Because sleep disturbance and then chronic fatigue when you're already being drained is not going to be great for your health. You know, tons of opportunity for healing, people, tons. Boundaries before, so it's not a blow up later. You know, the imbalances that can give you emotional burnout. Burnout is going to be a theme. And of course, you know, injury. It's Mars, it's fire, it's Aries, so we're going to be extra careful about burning. Could be cooking burns, whatever, but around fire. I'm kind of grateful this is in the middle of summer. It's not in the middle of firework and barbecue season. But cutting, like, you know, cooking, cutting, injury that way. There can be other kinds of injury, but those two especially. You know, just, I'm not saying wrap yourself in bubble wrap, but just be aware so that you slow down if you're hurrying to cook something, so you're not cutting or burning yourself. Slow down when you're curling your hair when it's in Leo. Not kidding. Listen, this transit offers us deep reflection and huge growth. It's Mars. It wants to go forward. Huge growth. And if this is, squaring your placements, there's going to be challenges. Like in Leo, there's going to feel like there's delays in the acknowledgement that you deserve. Like, you just be patient, because the opportunities that come afterwards are going to be so much sweeter, right? If it's it's unrestricted flow, so depending on the planet, that might be unrestricted flow of something that feels intense, or it might temper it. So take everything I said and just apply it. Is that going to be a challenge? Is that going to be unrestricted flow? Do we have any other questions, my lovelies? Tomorrow I will be back with all of this through the houses. I appreciate you all. I know that was just a lot to digest. I will try to get timestamps on here, lickety split. I will be here at noon Eastern tomorrow to go through all the houses. And then if there are any other questions, if you are watching this tonight or early tomorrow and you can't attend, you can leave a question under this video. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Like, I know it's going to hit your moon, Adva, so it's definitely hitting your moon. So just make sure you're listening to the Leo when it transits the moon. It's a little bit more than I do normally with going over each planet. But Mars retrograde only happens every 2 years, and it's always pivotal. It's always pivotal. I love you. Know you love you. I hope to see you all tomorrow. I'm here every Friday. The first month is public like this. The first Friday, the first weekend of the month, I should say, is always public, everyone. And then it starts to go into levels of membership. If you are gratitude or nerd, of course, you have every weekend and all the lives, all 8 every month. Membership, if you want to book a reading, all of that is in the box. You're on YouTube. You know how to get here. You know how to use the internet. It's all in the description box. And I will see you all soon. Bye.